Welcome to the Know. I'm Ashley Jenkins.
I'm John Reisinger.
The Switch already set records as Nintendo's strongest weekend launch of all time for a console, beating
strong.
even the Wii in a number of territories. Not all of them, but a bunch of them. But now we might have some data showing that the strong sales aren't slowing down, which I'm sure Nintendo is happy about. In fact, the Switch is doing so good it might even be keeping pace with PS4 and Xbox One's launch numbers.
That's a new one. Nintendo doesn't do that with PS and Xbox.
Not usually.
So that's really surprising. This info comes from industry analyst SuperData, my favorite superhero, which has published sales estimates for the Switch totaling 1.5 million units in its first week alone.
Yeah, it's important to note we are dealing with estimates here, so it's not 100% on point. There's going to be some variance in the actual numbers. However, these estimates are based on data the research firm pulled from a variety of retailers, suppliers, and outlets like GfK Chart Track, Famitsu, and others, some of which actually do have hard numbers in their individual territories like Japan or the UK, where everyone tends to be a little bit more open with that kind of information. The US likes to keep its secrets for whatever reason.
Why did we do that? Just let them know. Who cares?
What else would the government have to spy on if we didn't try and keep them secret?
We gotta give them stuff to do. SuperData estimates that 500,000 consoles were sold in the US, while 360,000 were sold in Japan. Meanwhile, they also say that Europe isn't far behind in Switch sales, with 85,000 units sold in the UK and 110,000 in France.
Now, considering that Nintendo planned on selling 2 million Switches in the console's first month, that means that they are well ahead of that goal. The Switch has only been on sale for a week, so they only need to sell 500,000 over the next 3 weeks to be on pace. So,
Good job. You guys
can
doing
you
so
can you
good.
guys make another 500,000, please? Thanks.
If you're wondering how that 1.5 million compares to the Wii after a week, which is the big comparison point that everybody's using here, since the Wii was Nintendo's best-selling console with 101 million units, that's million units sold globally.
That's a lot of units.
Yep. That's a little bit harder to judge.
Yeah, Nintendo bragged about the Switch surpassing Wii sales in its first weekend in the Americas and Europe, so we do know that it's at least doing better in those territories. As far as hard numbers go, we know from past data that Wii U did 3 million in its first quarter of sales.
Whoa!
Yeah, well, we did 3.1 million. Well, 3.19 million in its first quarter. Which is actually surprising because it means that in the first couple of months, the Wii U actually sold as many as the Wii. But now that we're looking at some bigger numbers for the first week, the other big question is how is the Switch faring against PS4 and Xbox One? It's a question that we're all asking, even if Nintendo's not asking that.
So the first couple of days looked worse for Switch than PS4 in basically every territory. In the UK, for instance, the Switch sold 80,000 units in its first weekend, which was double the Wii U, but worse than PS4 and Xbox One's opening weekends. And in Japan, the PS4's first weekend of 322,000 units beats Switch's 313,000, but not by much. In America, though, it was a different story where the PS4 sold 1 million in its 24 hours alone.
That's a lot of units to move in a day.
Yep.
However, thanks to the PS4 and Xbox One's supply issues in the first couple of weeks and the Switch's continued strong performance, it looks like the Switch actually has a chance to have closed the gap for launch numbers. After 18 days on sale, the Xbox One had moved 2 million units total and the PlayStation 4 had moved to 2.1 million units in its first 14 days.
At 1.5 million units in its first week, that puts the Switch on pace with the other two systems. And if it passes 2 million sometime in the next week, then it'll be right there with them, which is something that a lot of people probably weren't expecting out of Nintendo.
Nope, probably not.
Playing a totally different game off on their own in the corner away from Sony and Microsoft.
Yeah, even though they are kind of the third player in the console trinity, they don't seem like they're playing the same game as Sony and Microsoft. Sony and Microsoft seem like the head-to-head competitors, and then Nintendo's like over there, like doing their own thing, occasionally like building something really cool, and then sometimes just like trying to lick their elbow. Of course, whether or not Nintendo can continue to keep pace is going to come down to, well, at the moment it's going to come down to supply. And so far, that's actually not looking too hot for the company. With stock sold out at stores, many aren't even sure when they're going to be getting them back in. One anonymous manager from a major retailer in the UK told MCV that they have zero idea when more will be coming in. They haven't heard any word from Nintendo on the matter.
That's not good news. But even if they don't quite catch up with PS4 and Xbox, the company is no doubt thrilled about the console's early success. They set a rather conservative goal of 2 million in sales in 1 month, and they're already almost there in just 1 week.
And whether or not they're going to keep moving forward is, as always, going to end up coming down to the games. Superdata founder Just Van Drunen said in a statement to Polygon, the data indicates that the Switch is off to a great start, but leaves unanswered the question whether the new device will be adopted by the mainstream on the long term. Can the Switch grow its install base once the swooning around Zelda dies down? That's the big question.
Will the swooning of Zelda ever die down? It feels like it's going to go on forever.
It does feel like that sometimes.
So that would all make sense given some of Nintendo's past hardware trends. US Gamer did a nice breakdown of the 3DS's opening volley of sales numbers, which doubled the Wii's right at launch.
And that's impressive,
Yeah.
just on its own.
Only to fall off hard in the next few months. Nintendo eventually turned things around with the release of, actual games to play, like Mario Kart 7 and Super Mario 3D Land later in the year.
All right, so far, the game fueling most of that success at the moment is obviously Breath of the Wild. According to Superdata, 89% of Switch owners have also purchased Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which brings that title's Switch sales up to 1.34 million, even before adding in the Wii U. The real question that Superdata doesn't answer in all this, though, what are the other 11% even playing? Why did you buy a Switch at launch if you didn't want Zelda? Gonna be honest.
They just wanted a sandwich eating game.
It's a Zelda machine. Like who's picking it up for Fast RMX Snipper Clips is great, but it's not the game that you buy a console for. So I'm actually very curious if these are people that just got the hardware because they knew games would be coming eventually, or what?
Investors. So, after Zelda, Switch owners fortunately can look forward to a decently steady lineup of games with ARMS, Mario Kart 8, and Splatoon 2 all coming over the next few months, along with a slew of indie titles.
An actual slew.
A slew. Plus, Super Mario Odyssey is looming for the console at the end of the year.
There's a slew looming?
It's looming. Which that may persuade more Wii U owners to finally abandon ship around the holidays.
Yeah, so look, while the Switch is off to an amazing start, early hardware sales don't always paint the full picture. It's great to be excited. I think it's an awesome sign for Nintendo that they've managed to get so many people on board with the Switch at launch. But we all saw what happened to the Wii U long term after hanging pretty close to the launch sales of the Wii. And for the first few months of both the PS4 and Xbox One, those consoles were kind of really closely neck and neck until ultimately PS4 took off and Xbox One plateaued a little bit, and then PS4 ends up selling twice as many units as Xbox One.
It's a lot more units.
So the main thing being launch numbers are really exciting and they're really awesome and it's promising.
It's a marathon.
But it's a marathon.
Not the sprint. One of the big tells will be how Nintendo frames its inevitable press release about this time period, because so far we're only dealing with estimates. Companies in the industry tend to wait until they have something to brag about to get a little more specific, like Nintendo bragging about the Switch being the best console launch they've ever had in certain territories, for instance.
Yeah, like if Nintendo does beat the other consoles to 2 million, you can bet they will be pumping that 2 million number in an upcoming press release. If they don't, it'll be something a little bit more vague, plus maybe some extra bits thrown in about Breath of the Wild, super high attach rate. Otherwise, they'll go with some super boring stat that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but sounds good to investors.
Yeah, they'll just make shit up. We'll just have to wait and see what the Switch goes on to do, but early indications are very promising for Nintendo.
I do hope that their strategy of releasing like a game a month over the next couple of months will be enough to eke that out, especially since so many third parties are taking that wait and see approach. But what do you guys think of Switch's launch numbers actually competing with those of Xbox and PlayStation? Let us know in the comments.
For more updates on your favorite consoles, remember to like this video and subscribe to The Know.
Who's a good Bella?
That's a good Bella.
Say hi, Bella. Who's a good Bella? I like you so much. I like you so much more than you like me. Yeah, okay. That was the tongue. Hi.
Okay.
You're so cute. You're so cute.